Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. Listen, guys, I'm kind of flying semi-solo here today. Jonathan is out today, so I am running everything, so do forgive me if we hit any technical glitches along the way, but I'm not absolutely alone. I got Robert Meyer-Burnett with me here today. Robert, how you doing, sir?
I'm beaming in remotely. Doing well, John. Doing well.
Good to have you here. And of course, most importantly, it's good to have you guys here. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. And here's how our show's going to go. We're going to start off by talking about a few predetermined topics that we have lined up for you guys. Then in the second part of the show, that's when we're going to take your comments and questions. The way you send in a comment or question on our show is simply by using our tip link that you can send in anytime at www.streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. You can find a link for it down in the description of this video. When you send in a question, we'll get around to answering it as long as we deem your question appropriate to be addressed on our show. If we deem it inappropriate, we're not going to read it on the show. And the good news about the tip link is that it's good 24 hours a day. So if you're listening to our podcast, say either on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or your favorite podcasting app of choice, or if you're watching the show a little bit later in the day, you can also send in a comment or question, and we'll just get around to answering it, on the next episode that we're doing one. All right, guys. With that all down, let's get things started and talk about some stuff here, shall we? And we're going to start off with this. Peacemaker has dropped their first full trailer for Season 2. Variety's reporting here that Peacemaker Season 2 trailer, John Cena returns with James Gunn's new DC universe with cameos from Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl. They write, Team Peacemaker is finally back. John Cena's very rated R DC superhero has returned to the first trailer for Peacemaker Season 2, created by DC Studios co-chief James Gunn. The sophomore season takes place in the rebooted DC universe, which officially kicked off with Gunn's animated series Creature Commandos and continues this summer with his summer tentpole Superman. Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner and Isabella Merced's Hawkgirl, who you can see right now in Last of Us Season 2, cameo in the trailer and will appear in Superman. Listen, I have been a little bit nervous about Season 2 because, listen, I never thought Season 1 would be any good. I thought Peacemaker looked terrible. I thought the idea was stupid. I didn't understand why they were doing something around the Peacemaker character. And again, even when the trailers came before, I thought it looked terrible. And I absolutely 100% fell in love with it. I think it's the greatest show ever based on a DC character. Wow, man, Penguin is giving it a run for its money now that I think about it. But it's right up there, okay? And I've been a little bit nervous about whether or not they could actually, recapture that thunder, that lightning in a bottle sort of thing. But this trailer looks amazing. It's every bit as fresh. It doesn't feel stale at all. Every gag in the trailer for me completely land and crushed it. Having Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl in the audition, and by the way, get to see Sean Gunn in there as well, but having Guy Gardner and Isabella Merced in there in the audition is hilarious, talking about my butt's looking big and this guy sucks and everything. That was fantastic. The whole toxic masculinity joke I thought was absolutely well-timed and hilarious. And of course, you have, what is sure to be a very big antagonist for Peacemaker this time around with what's his name's dad. What is his name's dad again?
Rick Flag.
Rick Flag. That's right. With Rick Flag coming back in, which I think is going to be great. Do you think he knows that you killed his son? Yeah. I thought that looked absolutely hilarious. Anyway, Rob, you had a chance to check out the trailer. I listen, you and I haven't talked about any of this.
No.
I thought it was absolutely fabulous. You had a chance to check it out. What did you think about it?
I like you, I was totally amused by it. We both loved Peacemaker Season 1. I was really intrigued, actually. The trailer made me really intrigued about the new DC universe because obviously the reveal at the end, the who the hell are you, they're going to really play with universes and I mean, didn't Superman and Flash and show up in the end of the last season? I mean, or
And Aquaman and Wonder Woman.
I mean, it's going to be. I think that James Gunn is really going to lean into all this, and I'm really excited for it. I think that I like you. It was like a Peacemaker show. Like, really, it was hilarious. Like The Boys, it was totally bawdy. It was totally hard R rated. I mean, I was like, I couldn't believe some of the places they went. So I'm really looking forward to this. It looks terrific, and it looks like they're going to figure out a way to shoehorn it into the new DC universe in a very interesting way. So that intrigued me. And what's not to love? What a cast.
What would you say was your favorite part of the trailer there? For me, it was probably the Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl thing, but what was yours?
Yeah, well, I think so. Well, what that does is that assumes that Maxwell Lord's, I guess it's Maxwell Lord's Justice League, which leans into the Justice League, the comedic Justice League is one of my favorite comics of all time, and I want to see where that goes. But my favorite thing was Guy Gardner laughing hysterically. I mean, when they cut back to him and he's just laughing his ass off. I don't know why. Nathan Fillion is Guy Gardner. It's so funny to see Guy Gardner in a live action being depicted in the way that Nathan Fillion's doing it. And it's hilarious. And the Justice League, I call it the funny Justice League, the funny Justice League comic that J.M. DeMatteis and Keith Giffen did with Kevin Maguire's amazing art was a great breath of fresh air, but it was I thought I would hate a funny Justice League. I thought I would hate that idea. And they turned it into something delightful. And it looks like James Gunn is leaning into that Justice League run specifically. And if they bring in more stuff from that, I'm all for it. All for it.
Yeah. I listen, I'll be honest with you. I could not personally be happier with this trailer. It hit all the notes that I wanted it to hit. To have Rick Flag in there, again, having the little Superman cameos is great. And this does take place. They let us know this a long time ago that Peacemaker season 2 takes place after the events of Superman. So right. We know Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner don't die. So there's that. Not that we expected them to die anyway. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What did you think about the new trailer for Peacemaker season 2? I thought it was all kinds of fantastic. I mean, I don't know if the show will still end up being great, but the trailer itself was great. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move over to this, shall we? Recently there's a little bit of a stir going on when Jeremy Renner came out and revealed that Marvel and Disney had only offered him half, at least in his words, of what they paid him to be in Hawkeye season 1. To which I thought, well, maybe he's got a smaller role. But he said, no. They want me to do double the work and spend 8 months on set, which says to me that it's actually an increased role for him in it. So it got me really interested about like how on earth are they going to deal with this? But he kind of sounded in it like it wasn't a done deal that he wasn't going to do it. Well, now, according to a report, it's Superhero Hype is reporting that Jeremy Renner, who just did an interview on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, and he's kind of mentioned that, oh no, he's still totally up for doing Hawkeye season 2. It's not all finalized yet, and he may very well be in there. Anyway, this is what's written over there. Speaking with Josh Horowitz on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, Renner was asked if some rumors regarding where potential Hawkeye season 2 could go, the Raid-like story featuring Clint's brother were true. To which Jeremy Renner said, maybe some of that is true in there. I don't know, Renner said. We got into it a little bit, sort of story-wise and stuff. Everybody is interested in it. I'm like, yeah, of course, man. I wouldn't say no to that. I think there are a lot of ideas. They've still got a lot of figuring out to do. Then goes on to say, while the topic of the salary didn't come up, Renner did tell Horowitz that he's still game to do more Hawkeye, especially because it helps fund his Rennervation Foundation for foster care and at-risk youth. Additionally, Renner dodged any kind of comment about whether or not he'll be in Avengers Doomsday. So far, his casting in the forthcoming Marvel movie has not been officially confirmed. All right. So if we just go back to it again, it kind of sounded like, and a lot of people believed, and I understand why, a lot of people believed that that was it. It was official. There's not going to be a Jeremy Renner in a Hawkeye season 2, which, I mean, if you think about it, if they wanted him for twice as much work, an 8-month commitment, it doesn't sound like you just do Hawkeye season 2 without him. Like, it sounds like they've got it all set up where they absolutely need him to be in there at this point. But, you know, a lot of people saw what he said, and it's understandable considering the tone of what he said, and thought that he was basically saying that he's not going to be in Hawkeye season 2. But it does kind of sound here, Rob, a lot like what he's saying is, oh yeah, I turned down that offer, but that doesn't mean the door's closed. I turned down the offer. I said no to getting half the salary, but it sounds like they're still talking. It still sounds like he's saying he's totally down to do it. And it sounds like there's still more stuff to figure it out. So Rob, I got to ask you, at the end of the day, by the time we get a Hawkeye season 2, is Jeremy Renner going to be in it? And then kind of an additional question to that is, how important or not important is it for them to continue to have Jeremy Renner right now in the MCU? How do you see this?
Well, you know, Hawkeye to me has always been a kind of a foundational member of the Avengers, and he grounds the humanity of the team. And I think, you know, he's one of the last of the original Avengers that's still around. So I think it's important that they keep him. Look, if that guy can survive being stomped on by 1,000-pound or whatever tractor, I mean, he's keep the guy around. And, you know, the fact that he went back to his mayor of, mayor of Easttown?
Mayor of Kingstown.
Mayor of Kingstown. Mayor of Easttown, something else. But that's the man's a phenomenal actor. He's a fantastic screen presence. I love him as Hawkeye. I love the character. I think they really should keep him. And, you know, I guess he hasn't been announced as a member of the cast of Doomsday, but I'm sure he's got to be in Secret Wars. And I want to see him. I want to see him as Ronan wrecking fools. We never got to see what Ronan could really do. And maybe in Secret Wars, we will. I love that costume. I mean, they got to bring him back. They just pay the man. Like they said, he gives his money to charity.
I know, but I mean, look, you still got to be financially responsible, right? If you're a studio, you can't just give whatever. But I mean, at least pay him what you paid him for season 1. I mean, at the very least.
Yeah, you got to do that. And look at how much money. I mean, if you look at the Avengers movies he's been in, all 4 of them, the Avengers movies alone. Come on, there's some value there. There's some value.
Oh yeah, absolutely. By the way, I see some people in the live chat saying, well, they've already replaced him. Kate Bishop is Hawkeye now. No, she's not. They still refer to Kate Bishop as Kate Bishop. Yeah. You know, Jeremy Renner is still Hawkeye. Now, he may at some point pass the title on to her and all that kind of stuff. Like, for me, I think you absolutely have. I think it's very important for Marvel to keep Jeremy Renner in the fold because, like you were pointing out, there's just not many OGs left. Like, when you go back to that iconic scene in that first Avengers film, Rob, where like they're all standing in the circle and the camera pounds around them, half of them are gone. Yeah. Tony's gone, Steve's gone, Natasha's gone, Hulk is at a picnic somewhere. I mean, really, all you've got left is Thor and him. And I think, go ahead.
Well, I'm really looking forward if they stick with him. I really like the relationship that he was developing with Yelena, how Yelena wanted to kill him in the Hawkeye show. And that the relationship that there could be a mentor-student relationship or brothers-in-arms relationship between the two of them. I think that there's a great dynamic to be mined there for dramatic purposes. You know, whereas as Hawkeye, I could see Hawkeye and Yelena because they're both humans, unenhanced humans. So there's a great dynamic that could develop between those characters. And I'd like to see that happen moving forward in the MCU.
I agree. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Jeremy Renner is now saying in interviews that, hey, listen, it's not over. I am still totally open to playing Hawkeye and we're still just getting it figured out. Do you expect to see him in Hawkeye season 2? And maybe even more importantly, how important or unimportant do you see having Jeremy Renner still in the fold as one of the last remaining OG Avengers in this universe? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, we've been talking a lot lately about, you know, the world of physical media and the state physical media is in and all that kind of stuff. And in the midst of a lot of stories going on about, you know, Best Buy isn't going to be selling physical media pretty soon. Target isn't going to be selling. Like, entire countries now saying they're not going to be selling physical media. We keep talking about it. And one of the biggest parts about the decline of physical media has been the fact that a lot of the big manufacturers, some of the biggest, if not the biggest manufacturers of Blu-ray players, recorders, machines, discs, all that kind of stuff have been dropping out of the business. Well, now another big major name has said, we're not going to be making physical media stuff anymore. As the folks over at Notebook Check are writing that Pioneers reportedly pulls out of Blu-ray drive business. They say the following. Pioneer has reportedly pulled out of the optical drive business, including Blu-ray and DVD recorders, after 30 years of manufacturing such drives. Moving forward, the company will focus on electronics for cars, such as navigation systems. Pioneer has allegedly pulled out of the Blu-ray optical drive business, according to Impress. The company has transferred shares of its drive subsidiary Pioneer Digital Design and Manufacturing Co. Limited to Shanxi, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Technology Industrial Development in China. This move came after it decided to focus on automotive electronics, which included its popular car navigation units moving forward. All right. I feel like stories like this pop up every couple of months now about the next kind of stage in the decline to disappearance of physical media. Now look, of course, physical media is still there. Records are still there. Records and record players are still there, but they're kind of an insignificant number out there. So the more that these primary manufacturers start to drop out of actually producing the machines that play these things, I mean, you're literally killing off any new business. If somebody wants to get a Blu-ray player today, Rob, you know, it's a lot harder than it was 7 years ago, where you couldn't go anywhere with it. You could go into 7-Eleven and they'll have Blu-ray players for sale there. I mean, but now today, more and more, like, they're playing off. And listen, the point is not that physical media will die off because these players are stopped being made. These companies are choosing to stop making these players because there's not any business anymore. Like, if they were making money, they would continue to make these because corporate America is greedy and they want to make a lot of money. Anyway, Rob, you saw this about Pioneers now dropping out after several of the other big major names we talked about. How significant, not significant, inevitable, not so inevitable? How big of a deal is this that Pioneers dropped out?
Well, it's significant and it's inevitable. I've been a huge fan of Pioneer. They took over the Laserdisc mediums in America, basically, from MCA, who introduced the Laserdisc format in 78. Then they took it over and they had Laserdiscs from about, the early 1980s all the way up to the beginning of 2000s. They also made some of the best plasma TVs, and they had this new technology, their Kuro technology, which was their black. Kuro means black in Japanese, their black level technology. And then they got out of the TV business. And so them getting out of the optical disc space, this doesn't just represent 30 years of making Blu-ray and DVD players, but it's also the end of their optical disc era, if you want to include laser discs in that as well. And I think they make great equipment. I'm a huge fan of everything they've done. I love their screens. Those are gone. They sold their technology to Panasonic, who carried it on very well. But in a way, John, this makes me sad. But what you pointed out, the most important thing is that this is a lot of what they're talking about is getting out of data storage, like people burning DVDs and burning Blu-rays to store data. But if you can't get players anymore, what are you going to do with physical media? And there's very few people left that are making physical media players. And if you want to get a Magnetar player, that's like $1,500.
Ooh.
Like you said, it used to be, you could get a Blu-ray player everywhere. And now it's pretty rare. Like, I've thought about buying a few players, like 3 or 4 players, and just putting them away, so they'll carry me through to the last day I live on this planet. So, but that's a very real possibility. And people are always talking about, well, maybe physical media will come back like vinyl. No, because vinyl is a much easier format to deal with.
Right.
The thing about Blu-rays and 4Ks are essentially, they're like computer programs. And as our technology exponentially increases, that format becomes archaic, the very way it even works. So eventually, physical media is going to go the way of the dodo, unfortunately.
Yeah. And again, it's not a matter of a debate between, like, I often find whenever these stories come up about like additional signs that the decline of physical media is happening, a lot of people confuse that with us saying that physical media should decline and physical media should go away. And that's not what we're saying at all. There's a mountain of advantages to physical media. The fact that, Warner Brothers Discovery just announced they're removing like 200 seasons of television shows from there. And if you really want to have something and always have it, I mean, physical media is the way to do it. It's just not becoming a viable thing anymore.
We're actually living through a golden age of physical media right now with Sony teaming up with Disney. They're putting out amazing stuff. We just got a steelbook of Tombstone. They're putting out Ridley Scott's Kingdom of Heaven director's cut that they screened in a theater here in Los Angeles. And Warner Archive is doing amazing work. Warner Brothers just has a new initiative to do 4Ks of Clint Eastwood's almost his entire library at Warner Brothers. The boutique labels, Criterion, Second Sight, Arrow, doing incredible work. There's things coming down the pike in the next 2 years that I've wanted in 4K. Boy, I can't wait. Cannot wait. The next 2 years are going to be great. Will we have anything to play those discs on?
And it's becoming more and more limited on where you can buy them because a lot of the big stores are taking them off their shelves. And anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Another big major manufacturer of Blu-ray technology, Pioneer, has announced apparently that they are going to be getting out of the Blu-ray business altogether. Joining a number of other high-profile companies have done that. Is this just an inevitable thing? Is this a big deal? Not a big deal? I don't know. However you guys see it, jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? It's always been important to have good trailers for your movies, but I feel like in the era of when there's more and more movies out there and more alternative entertainment avenues for people, the importance of trailers has become paramount. Like in a world where people say, don't listen to critics, judge for yourself. It's like, so you're saying judge it based on a piece of corporately produced propaganda designed exclusively to manipulate you into buying tickets? That's what you should listen to, but it's true. Trailers are so important. A lot of us, many people, make the decision about whether or not they're going to go see a movie based on a trailer that they saw. And so that's why it's actually kind of a big deal that we have the Golden Trailer Awards, Rob. And the newest round of the Golden Trailer Awards have just announced all their nominees. And by the way, there's about 5,000 different categories. But according to them, leading the way this year are Deadpool and Wolverine and Wicked. Deadline writes the following. Box office juggernaut Wicked and Deadpool and Wolverine lead the nominees for the 25th Golden Trailer Awards, which were revealed today. The Warner Brothers musical scored 15 nominations, and the Disney Marvel sequels 13 nominations. Warner Brothers' Sinners snagged 9 noms and one more than Neon's The Monkey. To which you might want to ask, 15 nominations, why is there more than one category? Best Trailer. Oh, but there are a lot. Let's just take a look at some of the nominations. Best Action Trailer. Back in Action from Netflix. Ballerina. Canary Black. Formula One. And The Accountant 2. Now remember, we're not talking about best movies. They're talking about best trailers. And all those were fantastic trailers. They coupled up Best Animation and Family to Minecraft movie, Elio, How to Train Your Dragon, Piece by Piece, and Snow White. Best Comedy Trailers, Brothers, Friendship, Saturday Night, Wolves, that's the George Clooney, Brad Pitt film, and you're cordially invited. That's the Reese Witherspoon, Will Ferrell comedy. That's on Amazon. Then they got the best documentaries, best drama. The best drama trailers nominees went to A Complete Unknown, Gladiator 2, The Alto Knights, which I thought was a terrible trailer. Anyway, The Brutalist and The Luckiest Man in America with Paul Hauser. Best fantasy adventure trailer, Deadpool and Wolverine, Megapolis, Mickey 17, Thunderbolts, and Wicked. Best horror trailer, 28 Years Later, Heretic at 28 Years Later, such a good trailer. Heretic, Sinners, The Monkey, and The Rule of Jen Penn. Then they go on. Then they have best thriller. They also included best video game trailers. Call of Duty, Helldivers 2, Multiverse official launch. I don't know what that is. And Nobody Wants to Die. Now, then later on, I'm going to rush down because they've also started including in their nominations not only trailers, but they have a category for trashiest trailer. I don't even know what that really means, but trashiest trailer. Okay. Then they got international. I mean, look at all these categories I'm scrolling through. But then the best spots for TV. Now, the one I'm trying to find that I'm interested, then they got best sound mixing in a trailer. Look at all these. There's got to be like 50 plus categories. What I'm trying to find is that they also have a category for posters. And I'm trying to get down to it, but it's so far down. Give me a moment because I want to read off the posters. I should have had this lined up. Then best innovative for feature film, best anime. I don't know what they're doing here. Okay. You know what? I don't even think I'm going to be able to find it. It's too far down. I wanted to read the nominees though. Hold a second. Let me just do a quick search for it here. There we go. Posters. Okay. Best action poster, Mickey 17, The Crow. Again, remember, this is not about best movies. It's just about the poster. The Crow, Thunderbolts, and Tornado. Best animation poster, they've got Haikyuu, Moana 2, Piece by Piece, and The Wild Robot. Then they got even things like best billboard, which, Rob, you sent me a billboard. You texted me a billboard poster today, which actually should probably, that should win. Best comedy poster, A Real Pain, Death of a Unicorn. That is a great poster. Mickey 17, Successor. Anyway, Onward and Upward and all that kind of stuff. You know what's funny though, Rob, is when I'm looking at it, they have all these categories. I really thought they would and should have a best overall as well. Like if you look at the world of bodybuilding, they'll have like best 150 pound, best 175 pound. But then once they get all those winners, they bring all the winners back on stage for a final pose down. They give a best overall. It doesn't look like they actually have like a best overall trailer for that. But again, listen, the Wicked marketing campaign, it was a fantastic campaign.
Yeah, it really was.
Obviously, Deadpool and Wolverine was
great.
A magnificent marketing campaign. Like in the midst of Marvel kind of struggling, that movie came out and became the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. That says a lot about the marketing. Anyway, Rob, it looks like there's 375 categories in this. I couldn't even scroll through them all. But what does this say to you about like the importance of trailers to I did a documentary that you appear in simply on trailers. And what do you think about the nominees, about Wicked and Deadpool leading the way? And what was maybe one of your favorite trailers this year?
Well, I'm surprised. I mean, maybe it went last year, but the neon stuff, the neon trailer for why am I trying to blank on the name? Longlegs. You know, that Longlegs.
Oh, that was a good trailer.
In incredibly innovative campaign. I've always loved, like they called the Key Art Awards, which is all the movie advertising awards, and I've always been a fan of that because look, we talk about marketing, and when people are talking about marketing, they're talking about key art, which appears on posters, which aren't nearly as important anymore. But when you see marketing for a film, you know, we're always talking about it should be innovative, it should be interesting. The thing is, people love trailers. I mean, if you think about it, like you always said, it's a commercial, and yet we're salivating over trailers. Like we're desperately waiting to see the new Superman trailer, and so movie trailers have become 2-minute entertainments unto themselves that are promoted by the studios as almost their own thing. They just
Yeah.
happen to be free. And I think that key art, poster art, logo design, all of those things are incredibly important to the movie industry as a whole and individual films, obviously, because that's what entices people to get in there. And so the more innovation that we can celebrate, I'm all for it. And there's all different kinds. I mean, it's you really, the best TV spot, the best 10-second internet trailer, whatever it is. I mean, I think that all of those are legitimate forms of marketing. And I love the fact that they get recognized because they are very creative endeavors. And there's a lot of clever marketing going on. Already we've seen some really clever marketing for weapons. And they've already started a viral
the
marketing
campaign for that looks so good
because they know what they have. And I think that what's great about weapons is you don't want to give the movie away. And I think they did the same thing with Neon when they were doing Long Legs. The marketing for that was maybe not necessarily viral, but it was so counter to what we were used to. And even movies like The Monkey had really great trailers that made you go, I got to go see that. And then, of course, using that old recording from the teens for the 28 years later, that kind of innovative thoughtfulness. I don't know whoever came up with that idea, but what a great idea. That should be celebrated. And indeed, they are celebrating it. And then the Wicked trailers as well. Again, you see a marketing campaign like this and you can only marvel at how well they did. So, I mean, it gives people that don't necessarily get much recognition, the unsung players behind the scenes, it gives them a chance to be honored. I think it's cool. I love it.
Yeah, especially since a great trailer can deliver a decent opening weekend box office to a terrible film. And a terrible trailer can sink a potentially really good film all at the same time. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about that? Leading the way at the Golden Trailer Awards are Wicked and Deadpool. There's 75 categories, almost without exaggeration. What do you think should win? What trailers this past year stood out to you the most? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, we still have a bunch of stuff we got to talk about, including, according to the major trades, it looks like we may have our director lined up for the new X-Men movie, and it's the guy from Thunderbolts. We're going to talk about that in a second. Also, AMC Theaters just reported their quarterly financials, and no surprise, their revenue is down, their attendance is down. What do we think they need to do about that? We're going to discuss that, and there's a report coming out in Production Weekly saying the Batman 2 now has a production start date, but it may not actually have Matt Reeves as the director. We're going to talk about that and a few things more. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second and thank one of the sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Stitch Fix. We want to take a second and thank a sponsor of today's video, Stitch Fix. Guys, you know I love movies, but you also know I have absolutely no fashion sense, and I absolutely hate shopping for my clothes. But thankfully, I have found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. With Stitch Fix, I get a stylist who understands my style, size, and budget, and they do all the shopping for me. Because look, shopping and figuring out style can be overwhelming, especially for somebody like me. When it comes to getting dressed, I don't even know where to start, to be honest. That's why I love having a Stitch Fix stylist. They really know what works for me. I get pieces that make me look great, and it's a real confidence boost. You just give your stylist your size, style, and budget preferences. You get to order boxes when you want and how you want, no subscription required. They send you personalized pieces, and the fit is always on point. No stores, no crowds, no stress. Just personalized looks that you will love. So guys, make style easy. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Campea. That's stitchfix.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Stitch Fix for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get on to this, shall we? As we get into the final leg of the journey as heading towards Avengers, Doomsday, Avengers, Secret Wars, a lot of people are already looking past that, as they have been for the last 6 years. Ever since Disney purchased a lot of the Fox assets, including X-Men, people have been waiting for the X-Men movie. They've been teasing mutants. They've been showing off some mutants, teasing some X-Men, all that kind of stuff. But when are we getting that movie? Just the other day, we talked about a report that came out that said they hadn't quite yet got a director locked down for an X-Men movie. But according to Deadline, that now may be done. As according to them, X-Men movie at Marvel Studio is circling Thunderbolts director Jack Schreier. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right. I've read it 1,000 times, but only heard it pronounced once or twice. Jake Schreier to assemble a new team. This is what they write. Exclusive. Following the successful launch of Thunderbolts, director Jake Schreier might already have his sights set on the next big Marvel Studio projects. As sources tell Deadline, he is in early talks to direct the new X-Men movie. They go on to say that even before the reactions began to come out about how impressive Thunderbolts was, studios already were trying to get in business with the director. But sources say in recent days, he has begun turning down jobs as all signs were pointing to him landing one of the coveted directing openings in town. It's hardly a surprise that Marvel would stay in-house for this film, given how often it has rewarded directors with big assignments following the success of previous jobs. The Russo brothers wound up helming Avengers Infinity War and Endgame after directing their hit Captain America sequels. And most recently, Matt Shakman was given the directing reins of the Fantastic Four First Steps after helming the launch of WandaVision, the first Marvel Studios TV series for Disney+. All right. Now, first, it needs to be highlighted that what Deadline is now reporting is that he's their guy, but a deal has not yet been done. Now, 95% of the time, once these reports come out of the major trades that they're in now negotiations with this person, that usually means the talent's decided they want to do it. The studio has decided they're the person they want, and now they just got to work out the details, and it usually comes to fruition. But it does need to be stated that it's not a done deal yet, but it sounds like this is the guy. And if it is, am I saying he would have been the number one guy on my list? Not necessarily, but man, he's an exciting name. Because look, not only did he do obviously a fantastic job with Thunderbolts, that movie is far better than it has any business being. And a lot of that has to do with the direction. But he also did a great job with that, what was it called? Skeleton Crew. The Star Wars series Skeleton Crew. Like, he just did a phenomenal job with that. By the way, big thank you to Reggie, who just sent in a super chat badge to be supportive. Thank you, Reggie. So he did great with that. Also, that little series Beef that won all the Emmys and all the Golden Globes. He was the director of that. Now he does Thunderbolts. He's been in-house with Disney now for a couple things with Star Wars Skeleton Crew and now with Thunderbolts. And I'll tell you what, if he can bring that sensibility to X-Men, if that's how this all turns out, I'll tell you what, it's a great move. It's an absolutely great move if they can lock this guy down. Again, he's already shown he knows how to work within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's shown that he can tell other deeper, more interesting kinds of stories with both Beef and other things like a Star Wars project. If you can lock him down right now, I think you lock him down right now. Anyway, Rob, we've talked a lot ever since they announced that Disney and Marvel were getting the X-Men back. We've speculated and talked and dreamcasted about who could direct. If it does end up being Jake, what do you think about the choice? Good move, bad move? How do you see it?
Well, I think back to when Bryan Singer got the job directing X-Men back it came out in 2000, and they went to him because they thought his handling of the 5 usual suspects in that film was very deft. And I think that he's proven with Thunderbolts that he knows how to work with an ensemble. That, Taskmaster notwithstanding.
Yeah.
I think that he really did a great job bouncing between, and the same's true on Skeleton Crew. He knows how to work with an ensemble cast, and it's difficult to make a movie with multiple characters and to not to drown in all of that, and to make it feel like you're servicing all those characters. And I think it's extremely vital for a movie like X-Men, especially look, all eyes, I think even more so than Fantastic Four. I mean, the X-Men are truly uh probably the most beloved characters. I mean, aside from Spider-Man, the X-Men have a lot of a personal connection to people, and they always have. And for me, they're my favorite branch of the Marvel universe in terms of comics. So I think, and of course, obviously you have Wolverine, but it's the family dynamic, and especially coming off the heels of X-Men 97, the animated series, this is going to be the most scrutinized. I mean, everything from casting to the villain to, I mean, whatever they're going to do, I don't envy the task ahead of them. And I'm certainly excited about it, but I think this is a very good choice.
I think you hit it right on the head when you said that this is probably, I mean, other than the Avengers movies themselves, which are always
Yeah.
going to be, you know, they're big things. This is probably more important to them moving forward than Fantastic Four, if for no other reason than just a numbers game. With Fantastic Four, you get 4 characters. The X-Men universe is literally endless. I mean, like once you get in there, you're not just talking about the core team of X-Men. You're talking about a world of mutants where there are literally hundreds of characters in their pantheon that they can go in and draw from, and not just one single comic line that you can go back in history and pull from. You can pull stories from Excalibur, and you can pull stories from Uncanny X-Men, and you can pull stories from, you know, X-Force, and you can pull stories like you got multiple comic titles with decades of history. And again, it was a really big deal for Fox. It's going to be a big deal for them. How big of a role do you think mutants are going to play, like in setting up the coming X-Men films in the next couple of Avengers films, Doomsday and Secret Wars?
Well, I think it's going to be, it's going to be huge because they can pivot away from, they can bring in the superhero characters we've come to know over these 36 movies and the various TV shows. But what the X-Men movies do is, especially if they go to Battle World and it's more along the lines of what they did in 2015 in the comics, they have one world. There's no more multiverse. So they can spend a long time, this new planet, this new Earth, this new reality. You go back and you can explore the entire relationship of mutants throughout history,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of the way, look, a lot of people don't like Apocalypse, X-Men Apocalypse,
I was one that didn't like it so much.
but I think the first half of that movie is really pretty good. And I love that you see Apocalypse in ancient Egypt, and you carry forward, there's the Hellfire Club, in Victorian era. There's so many things that you can do with the X-Men. And I think if you decided to make 5 years of X-Men movies and not really focus on anything else, you could get away with it because there's so many really rich X-Men characters. I mean, if you wanted to bring in Longshot and deal with the Mojo verse, if you wanted to deal with that whole when Scott Lobdell was writing and you brought in Bishop and Trevor Fitzroy and all that craziness. I mean, there's so much stuff that you can do. And there's so many iconic storylines that you can delve into and there's so many different teams. I mean, whether it's, X-Force, X-Factor, X-Men, the possibilities are just endless. And I think what's going to be really interesting is they have time to plan again.
Yeah.
They've got to go back and they've got to do what they did at the beginning. And if it's planned out correctly and if it's done right, look at what they did with X-Men 97. They were able to resurrect that and turn it into a banger for people, and people love that. And if they do the same thing with the X characters, I mean, casting is going to be key because I mean, the fact that they're bringing back the Fox X-Men, and a lot of people love who they cast, but you've got to have people that are just as good. And what they're doing is they're rebooting the X-Men, but they're demanding you compare and contrast because they're putting those characters front and center in the new Avengers movie. That's pretty ballsy.
Yeah, but you know why they feel confident in doing that? Because if you go back to like X-Men Days of Future Past, when you had Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy, and you had they saw that the audience can embrace that. The audience
100%.
can embrace if you hold up the old person and that kind of baton being passed to the new. It can work.
Oh, I think it's going to work great because they can get rid of all of that in one fell swoop. and make it canonically interesting. They're taking what they do in comics all the time. They have these two gigantic event movies that are going to be the biggest superhero movies ever made. And then it's a way to reboot the universe canonically. And that's an amazing thing to do.
Listen, I'll tell you what. If you want, like, not quite get me excited on the level of finding out we were finally getting a Deadpool 3 or anything like that, but you want to get Johnny Campea really, really excited, you have Kevin Feige come out at Comic-Con and announce they have a 5-year plan, which he's already kind of alluded to, that he's got a 5-year plan now in place for X-Men. But if he comes out at Comic-Con and says, we've got like a 5-year plan culminating in 2031, X-Men Age of Apocalypse. If you want to see me lose my mind, unlike a top 2 or 3 biggest movie announcements of all time for me, if they come out and say that they're going to build up to an Age of Apocalypse, I will. I'm just going to straight up lose my mind. I'm going to absolutely go crazy. Now, can you put something like that together in just 5 years? I'm not 100% sure, but Kevin Feige seems to dream big, and I would be pretty excited if they did it. What if you could pick like one major X-Men storyline that you would love to see Kevin Feige incorporate into these movies, much like we had the Civil War storyline with Avengers and the Ultron story? What would be like, say, the one X-Men storyline classically that you'd like to see brought into this?
Well, first of all, let's hope they stay away from Dark Phoenix. I mean,
I've been there, done that enough.
I really hope that they stay away. But I mean, obviously, Age of Apocalypse is huge. And I don't think I loved House of M, but I don't think they're going to do that, because you needed to have Avengers disassembled. They could have done that, but they didn't have the mutants to go there. The only other thing that I can think of off the top of my head maybe would be the Mutant Massacre, or when like Kulon, the Mutant Massacre, which was obviously a huge storyline that involved a lot of things, or it's tough. There was a great storyline when Kulon Gath, the sorcerer, it's the one where they have Wolverine
on the X cross, yeah.
X. That storyline, because that involves Spider-Man and all of New York was transformed. But I think like the Mutant Massacre was a huge thing. But they did so many. There's so many. I mean, the thing is, Age of Apocalypse is huge. I mean, it was easily one of the biggest. And the other is like, X-Men versus Avengers, which I think they're kind of doing in Doomsday.
I think they're going to take some themes, some thematic stuff from that and bring it into Doomsday or Secret Wars or whatever.
But that's an interesting question. I mean, the thing about the Avengers movies is that the team was the Avengers, so that was putting that team finally together and getting all those characters together. So I don't know what they would. I mean, the Age of Apocalypse is the obvious one. The problem with that is, though, again, it relies on a multiverse gimmick when the universe changes and you see different aspects of those characters, which could be a lot of fun, but then you still have that kind of, it's not different variants, it's just different versions of the characters as opposed to the multiverse thing. But still, you could do it and not necessarily have the universe change. You could do an Age of Apocalypse storyline where he takes over the world or changes the time, does something, because it was so interesting to see like Magneto with Rogue and how they were an item. And I love the Age of Apocalypse storyline. And they changed the whole line of comics for like a year.
Oh yeah, everything changed. What about, do you think they could get into stuff like Krakoa, where like, or do you have to get a few years into X-Men before you start covering stuff like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I love the Krakoan storyline when it was written by Hickman, but I think the thing about that really only worked because you had 50 years of X-Men before that. I mean, I love that era. I think people would freak out a little too much if you did that, because a lot of people didn't like the Krakoan era. But I mean, I will live and die by the fact. Yeah, I loved the X-Men, Eternals, and Avengers storyline where with the Krakoan era and the resurrection of mutants, the Eternals like, well, now the mutants are deviants. We have to kill them. I thought that was a great idea. And Druig had to do it. He's like, no, they've gone too far. I thought that was a great storyline, but I don't, it's hard to say, but I'm excited. I mean, I think we're going to get years of X-Men movies that are going to be well thought out. We're going to get a whole new cast of characters, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they do, because I don't think, as much as I go back and watch X-Men 1, which I really liked, and I really liked X-Men 1, X2, and Days of Future Past and First Class. And I think Days of Future Past is as good as any Marvel movie has.
I think it's a top 5 greatest comic book movie ever. I really do. Yeah. I think it's that good. Anyway,
and
guys,
it shows you can deal with all those characters in such an interesting way.
Yeah. Guys, the question is for you. It looks like we may now actually have the director for X-Men, maybe, and it's the guy from Thunderbolts. How do you feel about that? What kind of X stories would you like to see adapted as they move forward? How would you like to see them start? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You can't have a movie business without the movie theaters, and the biggest movie theater chain in the world, AMC Theaters, just did their big financial call and report. And not as a big surprise to everybody, the first quarter of 2025 has not been good. Everything's down from revenue to attendance and whatnot. The folks over at Reuters wrote the following. AMC Entertainment posts lower revenue over decrease in theater attendance. They said this, AMC Entertainment on Wednesday reported a 9.3% fall in first quarter revenue as fewer blockbusters released from Hollywood studios led to reduced attendance at its movie theaters. Shares of the Leawood, Kansas-based company fell around 2% in extended trading. All right. Look, it's not a surprise to hear that the revenue and everything at AMC is down, that attendance is down. And I thought we would take a minute to maybe look a little bit at some of the causes, but more importantly, let's be positive. I wanted to look at some of the solutions that not just for AMC theaters, because I think you're going to find a lot of the theater chains are going to be struggling with this, but for AMC theaters specifically, but really all movie theaters in general, but what I think they need to be able to do in order to increase their revenue and get the attendance back up from what it was a couple of years ago. And I would start by jumping into the Campea classroom. And we're going to talk about things about fixing AMC problems. But before we do, we have to acknowledge, let me read this off. First, we must acknowledge that there are a couple of factors in these struggles that are outside of AMC's control that they can't do anything about and isn't their fault. Number one, the lack of big successful movies in the first quarter. I mean, you had movies like Captain America, you had movies like Snow White, but obviously those didn't do well, and that's not exactly AMC's fault. So that's one of the things that has led to them having this problem that's not really their fault. All right. Another thing that you got to keep in mind is that the current economic climate has people spending less money right now. You can just see in the news that the consumer confidence index is not near an all-time low. As everybody is completely uncertain about the economy right now, things with tariffs and spending and inflation and talks of recession and all this kind of stuff, the consumer confidence index is near an all-time low. That means that people are being a little more tight about their discretionary money. They're not spending their money as freely as they would. And one of the first things to go when you're spending less money is entertainment. I mean, that's one of the first things that seems to go when they get to that. All right. So I think those are two things that are absolutely completely outside of AMC's. It's not their fault that that happened. It's definitely a couple of the factors leading to their struggles. Not the only ones, but there are a couple of them, and there's really nothing they can do about that. So I just thought it was important that we first acknowledge that before we start dealing with the things they can impact and then they can have something to do with. All right. The first thing that I would want to take a look at here is what can they do? Number one, actually, let me redo that. There we go. What can they do? And I don't know why my things are not big enough. Hold on a second here. Yeah. Why can't I get this? There we go. What can they do? I need to get big enough so you guys can read it. Number one, This involves studios working with theaters. Studios have to stop taking a higher and higher percentage of the box office. The more the studios take, the more the theaters have to charge for tickets. Look, it's not rocket science. Every year, the studios renegotiate with the theaters and keep bigger and bigger chunks of the box office revenue. And hey, they're the studios. They should get the lion's share of the box office. Nobody's saying they shouldn't. But they're constantly going back and demanding more. The problem for movie theaters, like AMC, is that once studios take more and more of the movie ticket money, that leaves the theaters with no choice but to kind of increase the ticket prices to make up for that loss that the studios take. One of the solutions here, not the only solution, but one of the solutions here is that the studios have to partner with movie theaters to say, look, we got to put a lock on this. Like, studios got to understand they will make more money if the movie theaters sell more tickets. So, hey, studios, instead of trying to make more money by gouging more from the movie theaters, why don't you help the movie theaters sell more tickets and not have to raise their prices? So that's one of the things that I would say is something they need to look at. The next thing that I think movie theaters like AMC theaters need to do is they need to put on freeze. Now, this is connected to point one, but they need to put a freeze on price increases and get more creative with special pricing. For example, $5 Tuesdays, $5 pre-1 p.m. screenings, maybe a 2-for-1 deal on the first day of the month, where if you buy a movie ticket, you get to stay for another movie. What I mean by that is, and this is just a proposal, like say on the first of each month, if you come and see like a 6 p.m. movie, then by buying that ticket, you're entitled to stay in the movie theater and go check out an 8:30 movie. There's obviously some details and some logistics that would have to be worked out, but the basic premise is this. They've shown that when movie theaters engage in these special ticketing discounts and prices events, they get good results. They really do. Like, their numbers have shown, like, a lot of the movie theaters released that report a while ago, Rob, showing that their like half price Tuesdays or whatever have been really successful in drastically increasing the amount of attendance coming out on a Tuesday, which is not normally a big movie attendance day. But I think movie theaters need to get involved more in finding these special gimmicks that offer special discount and special prices, particularly on days that they're not normally making a lot of money anyway. Because the main thing is you want to get more and more people back into the habit of going to the movies. That's the key. Like, here's an example, Rob. Ann and I like bowling, right?
I do too.
And so we'll go bowling and we'll love it. And we're both terrible. Actually, Ann's much better than me. I'm a terrible bowler. Make no mistake about it. I'm not going to give any representations to the counter, but we go bowling, we have a great time, and then all of a sudden we just fall out of the habit of going. And then like 6 months later, we go bowling. We're like, why have we not come bowling? I don't know. Habit is a real thing. And you've got to do things as an industry, as a movie theater industry, to help get people back into the habit of coming out to the theaters. One of the best ways to do that, as already statistically shown, is by these special little pricing events you do, whether it's Tuesdays, early matinees, bonus screenings, whatever you can do to get people back into the habit of going to the movies, I think would be important. All right. Another thing that I think theaters like AMC need to do is they need to increase discounts on concession stand combo prices. Now, notice that I'm not saying they need to discount concessions. The unfortunate reality of movie theaters is because the studios take so much of the movie ticket money, the primary revenue source for movie theaters is and has always been the concession stand. That's how they pay their employees. That's how they pay their rent. That's how they keep the lights on, is concession stands. So I'm not trying to be unrealistic and say, cut your prices in half, which I would love it if they did, but then they'd go out of business. But maybe at least freeze those prices, but increase incentive by having better combo prices. Now, look, if I go to my AMC theater, I can buy a soda and I can buy a popcorn, or they'll have a combo. If I buy a popcorn and 2 sodas, I'll save like $1. Well, why not get a little bit more aggressive with your combo deals? Like, so if I want to go and take a date, or if I want to go and take a family or whatever, why not set it up so that, like, hey, if you spend over $25, you get an automatic 5% or 10% discount. That's $5 right there. And it doesn't hurt you as the movie theater as much because you're moving higher quantity of stuff. Things, if you buy 3 sodas, you get the 4th one free, or whatever. Experiment, play around with it. I'm glad that movie theaters already do combo discounts, but I think they can do better. I think they can do better, and I think they should do better. And I think if they do, they'll end up making a little bit more money. This one will come as no surprise to you guys. Of one of the things I think they need to do to increase revenue and get people back into the movie theater since their attendance is falling. Start your movies when you say the movie starts. I mean, I won't go into my whole diatribe again about the dastardly evil of 30 minutes of trailers, but start movies closer to their advertised start times. Or, I've been saying for a long time, this is a simple fix to everything. Actually, why don't you advertise when the movie actually starts? Like, say, the showtime is 7 p.m. That's when trailers and whatever starts. Film starts at 7:25. You know, Rob, I was saying recently that I started noticing that on some of the sports tickets I would buy. Like on some sports tickets I would buy, it's like game time, 4 p.m., kickoff, 4:07. Like it would actually say that, right? It would actually give me that information. Why not? Like, because listen, if you're trying, you are selling an experience, right? Movies are experiential events. You're selling an experience to people. Come and have this experience. When you start off somebody's evening with 25 minutes of commercials that they did not pay to sit there to watch, you are immediately giving them a negative experience.
Yeah.
So I just think the whole idea, and again, the whole thing about, we'll just go 15 minutes late. Well, the problem is movie theaters like AMC aren't consistent. So sometimes they start a movie 10 minutes late. Sometimes they start at 30 minutes late. So you can't even guess where you're going. So I think just either adopt the old ArcLight 3 trailers in a movie rule and be consistent, or advertise to the consumer what time the movie actually starts. Showtime at 8, movie begins 7:21 or something like that. I think that would go a long way. Anyway, Rob, everything I'm just trying to bring up here is these little things that I think would enhance and better the movie theater goers experience, which I think will attract them to come back more often, which will raise revenue, which would be good for everybody. Anyway, Rob, when you see this report that's come out now that AMC's, their revenues dropped by 10% from the first quarter of last year, attendance is down again. There are external factors, the economy, not such great movies came out in the last 4 months. What do you think about that? And then what would be some of your recommendations maybe to the movie theater industry to get people coming back more?
Well, I think all of your ideas are great ideas. And I think really you nailed it. You've always said movies are experiential events. The problem with showing a bunch of commercials in a movie theater is commercials don't belong in a movie theater. Commercials belong on television. They belong on the internet. They belong elsewhere. And when you do that, you diminish the experience of being in a movie theater. You're immediately telling your audience that this place is not special. It's like everywhere else you're going to go. You're going to see commercials for laundry detergent or something. And it's like, that doesn't belong in theaters. That's why going to the ArcLight, which was it was a chain here in LA, we knew that they would show 3 trailers, and they made sure that the trailers were relatively related in tone or subject matter to the movie that you were going to see. So it all enhanced, it made it all part of the experience. Like you could anticipate that experience and know that, ooh, I wonder what I'm going to see today and how is it going to relate to what I'm going to go to or what I'm about to watch. And I think another thing, I mean, all this, the things you had about concessions, look, I really like the more luxurious seating that we have. I like the fact that you can buy a glass of wine. I like the fact that better concessions, the ArcLight also had, they had They didn't have a lot of choices, but they had things like those apple sausage hot dogs, or which were really, really good, and they were consistently good. Wasn't so much, nachos and things like that, but it was great food that was easily consumable. It wasn't messy. And I think a lot of that is what you need to do. I mean, anything, the key is, first of all, to make sure that the movie itself is presented. Too often do I see movies that the bulbs look too dim, the sound is not balanced correctly. You need to make sure that the presentation of films is first and foremost what the audience is getting. And seeing Ryan Coogler and Kodak releasing a video about the formatting, IMAX is becoming increasingly more important as movies move forward because of the presentation that you get. Like, no one's going to go see Avatar really, to go to an IMAX movie or IMAX screen to see that. Christopher Nolan does the same thing because they are leaning into the experience of it all. And I think that should be the defining, moving forward, the defining thing about movie theaters and the experience of going is make sure that every part of that event is somewhat special. Don't make it mundane. Movie theaters should be special. And whatever you can do there's so many different things you could do, but to make that experience special is what you should do. I mean, the theater that the Harkins Mountain Grove 16 that's near me has, you go in there, it's a nice place.
Yeah.
The bar is nice. It has a big giant concession stand. Even walking into each theater, the signs above the screening rooms with the name of the movie, you feel like you're in a place that's upscale, if that makes any sense. And I feel that same way about like the AMC 16. I mean, it gets a little the opening when you first walk in there, it gets a little crowded at the refreshment stand, which I understand, but at least you have an experience like walking into that Dolby Cinema. You're walking down and it feels like you're in a ride in Disneyland. It feels, it's special, and just because they have the giant Dolby logo on the wall and the way the light is when you walk down the corridor to go into the actual venue, into the screening room. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to make people think that as soon as they walk into a movie theater, that they're leaving their real life behind and they're going to be taken away somewhere.
I remember there's a theater, I've talked about it before on the show. There's a theater, it's a small chain, and I think they're across the country in Pasadena called iPick. I think
Yep.
I've talked. I'll tell you, Rob, it was exactly like what you were just describing, right? You'd walk in, there's a well-dressed usher there, took your ticket, you went in, and when you walk into the lobby, it feels more like you walked into a Ron Burgundy with old leather books. Like there was carpet, nice leather furniture around, and a pool table. And it felt like you were in a speakeasy. And then with these doors that went into their various theaters, and then you go in. Again, it's like, look, for half the cost of upgrading one of your screens, you can turn all you need is a good designer. You can turn your lobbies into something really, really special without having to spend too much money. And again, just everything like you're saying to increase the overall experience of going to the movies. If you have a great time from the moment you walk in the door, like not just from the moment when the movie starts,
Right.
but from the moment you walk in the door, you are more likely to come back again.
Well, that's why I love the Hollywood ArcLight where the Cinerama was.
Yeah.
You
Before
walk
the
in, they
pandemic put them out of business.
Yeah, and they had the gigantic, it almost looked like a Times Square train station sign that had the big clock in the middle and all the different show times and the times. And
It
then
was fabulous.
the restaurant they had there had a fixed menu, but it was consistently good. I love their bolognese they had there. And they had a great bar. Like, I sometimes would go to the ArcLight and just hang out at the bar because I knew I would run into somebody I knew eventually. Just, you could hang out there all day and run into 10 of your friends.
Yeah.
Especially on a weekend. I mean, it was literally a destination spot. And then their presentations were always great. And that was something that why they can't get that back open, I'll never understand.
I mean, yeah, look, It was tough for all movie. Listen, a number of smaller movie theater chains got shut down during the pandemic. It's really tough to be a business that is predicated on people coming through your doors.
Yeah.
And then nobody could come through your doors. And like ArcLight, especially being right in Hollywood and that giant piece of property and having to pay the rents on it. And
but that huge entry section. I mean, the lobby
so
was like
gorgeous.
3 stories tall, and you walked in there and it's like, it was a magical place.
Yeah. You know what they made it feel like? It made it feel like you were going into a giant train station or an airport because it was a destination. Like they gave you this sense of adventure from the moment you walked into the theater. It was, and again, they had that great rule: 3 trailers, then the movie.
Yep.
Done. And it was great. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? AMC, not surprising, has reported lower revenue, lower attendance for the first quarter of 2025. I mean, a couple of factors are completely beyond their control. The economy's in a mess right now, so that's got people spending less money. There hasn't been the product out there, like big enough movies that have been good enough to really attract out enough people. That's beyond the movie theater's control. But there are things in their control. What do you think those things are? What can the movie theaters do without killing their own business that would improve their situation? Whatever you guys think about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, one of the biggest things that people have been talking about the last year or so has been, where is Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves as the Batman 2. And there were some whispers and some rumors going around, but now we have some good news and maybe some bad news. As is being reported in a number of the trades, including fan sites and whatever, Matt Reeves is reportedly not on right now as the director of Batman 2, but the Batman 2 does have a start date. This is what's being written. It says this: a new report suggests that Matt Reeves may be stepping down as the director of the Batman Part 2, but will remain on as the scriptwriter. We can't stress how much caution you should use with this report. If it had come from somewhere else other than Production Weekly, and that's where this report is coming from, a very respected trade publication. Production Weekly, a trade publication that offers status updates on films, we more than likely wouldn't even discuss it. So here's the basic thing. The report in Production Weekly, which again, a very reputable inside trade publication, has said that The Batman 2, as written by Matt Reeves, will go into production on March of 2026. That's when they're saying it's going to go into production. So we have a production start date. Here's the catch. In Production Weekly, where they list the writers, they also list the director. And they do not list Matt Reeves as the director. They don't list anybody else, but they don't list Matt Reeves as the director. Now, could that just be an oversight? It could be. It doesn't happen often, but it could just be an oversight, okay? So it is possible that, Matt Reeves is absolutely still the director of the Batman Part 2, and that was just a simple oversight. Could be. So let's keep that in our minds as we continue to talk about it. Here's the thing, and I struggle, Rob, with how much to say or not say. You guys will remember about a month ago, I mentioned and it got everybody mad because I was like, I've been told something and they said it was okay for me to share it, but I don't know if I feel good about sharing it. Then I didn't share it. And then everybody got mad, but I did tell you, Rob, and I told Ray and I told Jonathan, but I didn't tell the thing. So from what I have been told, and I'm not going to go into details, and you guys have seen other rumors online about this, but what I got told about a month ago was, without giving specifics, there's something going on with Matt Reeves. And it's something that, if it's going to be public, it should come from Matt Reeves, not anybody else. So I know everybody hates it when I'm kind of vague, but if, Rob, what I was told and what I passed on to you and what I told you is true, it's not surprising. hearing that he won't be on to direct the Batman 2. Although I don't think it's impossible that he could come back and direct Batman 2. So what would it mean for something like Batman if Matt Reeves can't come in and direct it? Because I've already heard a lot of people say, understandably so, it's like, there's no point in even doing it if Matt Reeves isn't there to direct it. It won't be as good. It can't be as good if Matt Reeves isn't there to direct it. To which I would say, you know what else Matt Reeves didn't direct? Penguin. Of course, he was very involved with that project. He's the one who got it set up. He's the one who set the direction for it. And then, trusted screenwriters with his vision, trusted other directors to come in and direct it. So he didn't direct anything, but it still worked out great because Matt Reeves set up the template. This is the world. This is the universe of the Batman. And it turned out fantastic. It turned out absolutely fantastic. So does the Batman 2 need to have Matt Reeves actually there on set in the director's chair directing the movie himself after he's already set up the universe, set the templates, written the script? Does it have to have him as the director in order to succeed? I would certainly, as a fan, like to have him in there directing, but the Penguin proves to be in this Batman universe. It doesn't have to be him in the director's chair. He's already had such a huge influence on it that a capable director who understands Matt's vision should be able to step in here, Rob, and take the reins and move forward. Here's the other thing that really stands out to me about this is that there's been absolutely unfounded nonsense out there. People saying James Gunn doesn't want Matt Reeves as Batman. James Gunn wants to get rid of it. Listen, idiots. James Gunn is the CEO of DC. If James Gunn didn't want Matt Reeves as Batman, he would simply say, we're moving on from Matt Reeves as the Batman and we're going to focus on DC, the DCU's Batman. If this report is accurate, and again, take it with that giant grain of salt and with that giant Thunderbolts-like asterisk, if this report coming out of Production Weekly is accurate and Matt Reeves is not going to be directing it, then it doubles down on the assertion of just how much James Gunn and Peter Safran do want this Batman sequel. Because, I mean, listen, if we lived in a world where James Gunn and Peter Safran didn't actually want this Batman movie to be made, Rob, then this would be the perfect opportunity for them to go, oh, Matt's not available to direct, and we wouldn't want to do it without Matt, so we're just going to move on. For this to come out and say, hey, we've got a production date, and maybe Matt Reeves is not part of it, but they're still doing it. To me, that just verifies the fact that, yes, James Gunn wants exactly what he said he wanted. He wants the Batman 2. He wants this Batman to exist at the same time that the DCU is going on. So that's encouraging to me. So yeah, listen, again, bottom line, it's really disappointing if Matt Reeves can't direct this film. But I don't think that's the end of the world for this movie if he can't, because he's already set the template and Penguin has shown that they could still do great storytelling in this world he's created, even if it's not him in the director's chair. Anyway, Rob, you saw this report in Production Weekly saying that we've got a March start date for production, which is still a long ways off, but it gives them plenty of time to be ready to start rolling cameras, finish the scripts, get pre-production, get all the set design done, get all the costuming done, all that kind of stuff. And then how big of a deal, positively, negatively, it's okay, it's not okay, if indeed Matt Reeves is not directing this film? How do you see it?
Well, Irvin Kershner directed The Empire Strikes Back.
That's
after
true.
George Lucas directed the first Star Wars. So I think it always comes down to talent, and it always comes down to finding somebody, a director who's passionate about the material. And I think, look, following in the footsteps of that first The Batman movie, I think a great director would be happy to take that task on. And they've certainly got a great team of people that were not only able to make, as you pointed out, the Batman, but they made the Penguin too, which was an unbelievable show. So, and Matt Reeves hopefully will be able to participate in some way, surely as a producer and a writer, probably. And I think that there's no reason not to return to that universe. I mean, no one's going to mistake it for the DC universe that James Gunn is cooking up. But I really would like to see Pattinson in the cowl again. I really enjoyed that film. And I thought it was a different take, a more grounded, down to earth take, the way Nolan's were, but even more grounded than that. And I really enjoyed everything about that movie. And I would like to see a second one. And I think, it would behoove this. The movie it did make $1 billion, but it did very, very well. And I would love to see the elements, just the feel of that universe, that Batman universe that's unique to the Penguin and to the Batman, be continued, because I think it deserves to be. And so I think that there are plenty of directors. I mean, I think about the fact that, like, Francis Lawrence came on and took over directing Catching Fire and Mockingjay 1 and 2.
Yeah.
You could find a director who's a perfect successor for the franchise. I mean, I know a lot of people could look at, especially Warner Brothers movies. You look at someone like Richard Donner. He made Lethal Weapon. And then, of course, you want him to come back and do Lethal Weapon 2, which he did. And I understand that continuity. George Miller doing the Mad Max movies. Totally understand that. But I think that we've already seen with Batman movies. I mean, a lot of people like what Schumacher did with Batman Forever, following up on Batman Returns. The less said about Batman and Robin, the better. But I think that we have plenty of cinema history that shows that a sequel can be made without keeping the original director, and it can be effective. So if Matt Reeves can't do it, I mean, for whatever reason, to honor Matt Reeves and what he's done, I'm sure they can find a successor, especially if the material's great. Hell, man, off the top of my head, I'd love to see David Fincher do a Batman movie. And in terms of that, following in that footsteps.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different people who can do it. One of the things you bring up, though, that I thought that to me is exciting, because the Batman was done so early in his career as Batman, right? One of the things that I really liked is, and I've always said this about the Ben Affleck portrayal of Batman, is that Ben Affleck and Zack Snyder understood that Bruce Wayne is a fake character. Batman, that's who that guy is. That guy is Batman.
Yeah.
In the alley with his parents, little Bruce Wayne died and the Batman was born. And Robert Pattinson carried that on. But it's so early in his career, he hasn't learned how to manifest that fake Bruce Wayne persona yet, right? I want to see now him getting a little further in his career where he realizes, if I'm going to be able to do this, I got to have Bruce Wayne out there as a face, and I can't be Batman walking around as Bruce. I got to create this facade of Bruce Wayne. I want to see him create that dichotomy between the Bat and the Bruce. You know what I mean?
I mean, that what you just described is a great, that's a great way to get into a new Batman movie. And the fact that this new Bruce Wayne persona, whatever's going on with him and the Batman, there's a story where the two dovetail. And that's a really interesting, great way into that. And I think it's also exciting for any filmmaker to take that on, because we've never seen it on screen before. The manifestation of Bruce Wayne. And I think that one of the things Pattinson did is Pattinson felt like an alien in his own skin. Like when he showed up at the beginning at that crime scene, and he's walking through, and the cops, everybody knows who he is, and they're looking at him like he is an alien, because there is no human persona. He's still completely emo, broken Batman. I mean, like you said, and we've never seen the origin of the Bruce Wayne persona is really an interesting idea. Let's see that,
I agree. All right, guys. Listen, we've got to reemphasize here again. There is a couple of other possibilities here, right? This could simply be an oversight in Production Weekly. There could be a number of other explanations going on here. Absolutely keep that in mind. Just for the sake of the discussion, though, I would say that if Matt Reeves is not going to be directing this, I don't think it's the end of the world for the movie. We saw what happened with the Penguin without Matt Reeves directing. As long as it's his world that he created and everything, and it's his vision being carried out, you can have another director come in and kind of do it. So we'll see how this all turns out. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this? How significant is it, and would it be to Batman Batman 2, if Matt Reeves is indeed not directing it? And what do you think about my other assertion that this just kind of reaffirms that James Gunn and Peter Safran despite what some people would try to convince you of, actually are very excited about a Batman 2 and really are committed to getting it done, because even if Matt's not doing it, they still want to push ahead with it. However you guys see it, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, it's time to move on to the most important part of our show, which is, of course, taking your comments and questions. But first, of course, we've got a bit of due to, of course, writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, awesome show. Thanks a lot for being here again today.
Fun show today, man.
Great having you. And guys, of course, also before we get on to your questions, we're going to take another second and thank another sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Hungryroot. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Hungryroot. Okay, so I'm sure you guys can all relate to this. Spring hits and suddenly life goes from like 0 to 100. Busy season is officially in full swing over here. And honestly, who's got time to go grocery shopping? That's where Hungryroot comes in. See, because Hungryroot is like having your own personal shopper. I told them my goals and they started curating groceries for me that actually fit my life. Be it smoothies, snacks, salad kits, even ready to eat meals. All clean ingredients, no artificial junk. This week, I got the grilled turkey tenderloin with pesto grilled veggies, and it was amazing. And I got my usual protein-packed snacks. It's like they're learning my taste better than I even know myself. And the best part is, I don't have to waste time driving to the grocery store and wandering the aisles. That's time I can spend doing literally absolutely anything else. Guys, I love Hungryroot. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Campea and use the code Campea. That's hungryroot.com/Campea, code Campea, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/Campea, code Campea. And thank you to our friends at Hungryroot for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that all down, let's get on over to your questions that you guys have sent in here, shall we? We're going to get started off here with Sci-Fi Extremist, who tips in a $20 tip. Thank you, Sci-Fi Extremist, for supporting us on that level, man. And Sci-Fi Extremist writes, John and crew, you have an alternate reality streaming service which one movie and one season of TV of any project that was in any form of production but not finished. I'd pick George Miller's Justice League. It's exactly what I started thinking about. And Justin Hawley's CW Aquaman. What would you watch? Well, I mean, I've always been fascinated by that George Miller's Justice League, because number one, it's George Miller doing a Justice League movie. That could be great. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting was that George Miller was going to prove that you don't need a bunch of individual character movies first before you have a team-up movie, right? Because with the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, everybody thought, well, Marvel did it individual film, team up, so that's the way all of them got to be. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. And I really like the idea that George Miller was going to come straight out of the gate, boom, Justice League. And I thought that would have been pretty cool. Another one that I think it's the right thing that it did not get made, but I would be curious to see what it would have looked like. And that was going to be the Halo movie. You guys remember Halo was going to be directed by a guy nobody had ever heard of yet at the time, because District 9 had not yet come out. What was the director's name of District 9 again? Neil Blomkamp. Thank you. Ray's still in the room with me, even though I don't have him on camera right now. Neil Blomkamp, right? He was going to direct, and Peter Jackson was going to produce a Halo movie. And when they decided to get a director who had literally never worked on a movie before in his life, the financiers kind of pulled out. But I would have been kind of interested to see how that might have turned out. I think that would have been kind of cool. Age, thanks for sending that in, Sci-Fi Extremist, and thank you so much for supporting us on that level, dude. Really appreciate that. All right, next up, we have FutureMan19 who writes, I've noticed that most of the YouTubers who have been hating on Disney Star Wars for the past few years have almost all agreed that this has been the best Star Wars since the original trilogy, or at least in a long time. This is the Star Wars we deserve. It reminds me a little bit of when Mandalorian first came out. Because listen, the Star Wars fandom And I am a lifelong Star Wars fan. My entire life path has been dictated by the fact that I'm a Star Wars fan. My entire career journey has been dictated by the fact that my earliest childhood memories watching Star Wars. I am the biggest Star Wars fan in the world. But the Star Wars fandom is a cancerous, toxic cesspool. Anyway, and when Mandalorian came out, it was that wonderful brief reprieve because it kind of felt like not everybody, because I'd be exaggerating, but it felt like almost everybody, almost everyone in all the various corners of Star Wars fandom seemed to agree this is pretty damn good, right? When Mandalorian came out. And it's not as much to that degree with Andor, but it is similar. Now, there are still some people that only want their, and I get it, there's nothing wrong with this. There's some people who only want their Star Wars to be lightsabers and explosions and spaceships. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. So it's not, I don't think this Andor is as unifying as that because it's very grown up Star Wars. But it does have that kind of similar feel that a lot of people in different corners of the Star Wars quote unquote fandom, tend to have more agreement on this than they do on most things. And that's, man, Star Wars really needed that right now. I mean, it needs more than just that, but Star Wars really needed that right now. All right. Thanks for that, Future Man. Next up, we've got Alex Von Gollum, who writes, about Andor Episode 8, the way the actor portrayed Old Man Rylance as he sat on the floor while the distress message was broadcast after having realized his group had been set up by the Empire for the massacre, showing regret, helplessness, felt so real. I'll tell you what, that when he figured it out and he tried to tell everybody, even though for a while he was like their leader, but this is the thing. When people get emotionally riled up enough, they won't even listen to people they respect. That's a truism in life. When people get emotional enough, they won't even listen to the people they respect. And like the Gormans, the Gore, as they call themselves, at that point, they were so fired up and so ready to march down there that even though this guy they respect more than anything else, trying to tell them, guys, don't do this. This is a trap, blah, blah, they just pushed him aside. And he realized in that moment, his role that he played, that he was played. He got played and he helped lead them all to that point. Again, it was some of the best 2.5 hours of television I've ever watched. And it's the best 2.5 hours of Star Wars we've had since Return of the Jedi. It was just absolutely phenomenal. And I cannot wait for Tuesday, man. I cannot wait to see the last few episodes. All right, next up. Alex Von Gollum also writes, I am so not ready for the passing of Luthen in the final arc. While he used many people as chess pieces using the weapons of the enemy, he always did it to galvanize the rebellion. Stellan played him such that you care for him. My heart will break. Well, first of all, it should be mentioned that we don't know that Luthen dies in the final episodes. For all we know, like he'll look at the preparedness of Yavin and the status of a rebellion. And now that Mon Mothma has sent out her message to the galaxy, Luthen may now just finally go, my job is done. And he gets into that wild ship of his and just takes off. Again, I'm not saying that's what will likely happen. I'm just saying we have no reason to believe, there is reason to believe, but we have no way of knowing that Luthen actually dies in these last few episodes, right? It could very well be that he goes, I've done it. I did what I set out to do. I burned my life for a sunrise I know I'll never see, and now get in his ship and just take off and say, my role is done and I have nothing else to give here. As a matter of fact, my presence here is now going to just be more of a subtraction than anything else. The rebellion is here. Time for me to go. Again, he may die, he may not. We'll kind of see. All right. Next up, we've got Potion Seller writes, hey, John, This guy on TikTok made his awesome cut of The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, similar to the cut of the Obi-Wan TV show from a couple of years ago. It has the best parts of both movies in a 2-hour and 40-minute cut. Highly recommend watching. Big fan. Here's the thing, though. I love what that dude did with Obi-Wan because I didn't like Obi-Wan. And he managed to take it and edit out something that was actually enjoyable. It still wasn't great, but he managed to take that series, edit it down to like a 3-hour movie instead of a bad, overly long TV series. And he moved things around. He added a few things and he made Obi-Wan enjoyable. Thing is I really love the first Amazing Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, that was a step down. No argument from me. I think it's overly hated. I don't think it's a tragic car accident that a lot of people make it out to be, but it is a significant step down. But still, I love The Amazing Spider-Man 1. As it is, I don't need a recut. Like, again, that doesn't mean other people can't feel differently, of course. But I'm just saying, for me, I wouldn't be as interested in a recut of The Amazing Spider-Man because I really liked the first one, and I thought the second one was, well, it was what it was. But there it is. All right. Thanks, man. Next up, we've got Matthew Codrum writes, Blade is the same way I felt about Indiana Jones 5, Ghostbusters 3, and other projects stuck in development hell. I'll believe it only once there's catering. Yeah, I mean, I don't only feel that way. I feel that way about any new Star Wars movie. But John, Ryan Gosling and what's the director of Deadpool and Wolverine again? Sean Levy, yeah. But John, Ryan Gosling and Sean Levy, they've said they're doing it. They were at Star Wars. Yeah. Okay, I get it. But you know what? We had Taika Waititi come out and say, I'm making a Star Wars. You know, Kevin Feige's making a Star Wars movie. This person and it never happens. Again, I ain't saying that Star Wars Starfighter isn't going to happen. I'm just saying I'll actually believe it when I see it. So I totally get how you feel about Blade. All right. Next up, we've got Jedi Jester writes, I just want to thank you for being a beacon of positivity. Thank you, man. Not too long ago, within a 2-week period, I lost both my younger brother, oh my God, I can't even imagine, and my best friend of 35 plus years to cancer. I have a lot of fond memories of going to the movies with them over the years. You know, I've told the story many times about, you know, my best friend growing up passed away a couple of years ago. And it just makes me even think more fondly of all those movies that we went together, particularly that he was the guy I was with when we went to go see Batman for the first time. Right. But it's true. You guys know I recently lost my mom. 2 months ago now, I guess. A month and a half ago, whatever. I recently lost my mom. And while I have obviously loads of memories, some of the best are the ones where I was in a movie theater with her. She was the first person to introduce me to Star Wars. Yes. But also what was a great tradition was every time I would go home to visit, I would always take my family out to a movie. And I think the last movie I got to take my mom to with my family, I think it was a Star Wars movie, actually. I think it was. Anyway. Well, yeah, there's Rogue One. I definitely went with Rogue One. I might have taken her to one after that too. But, I mean, I remember going home to Canada and taking her to see Aquaman. And I remember going home to Canada. Like, that's one of the great things about movies is they are experiential events. And they're best when they're shared experiential events. And when you have fun, great experiences with other people, those stick with you. And movies are definitely one of those big things. And so, number one, I'm terribly sorry to hear about your loss, man. I really, really am. And I'm so glad though that you have those movies because now your memories and your experiences with them live on through your experiences with the movies as well. And that's one of the great things about them. Anyway, thanks for sharing that, Jedi Jester. Appreciate that very much. All right. Next up, James in the UK writes, I will watch FD Blood. Guys, please don't write in acronyms. I'm going to assume you mean Final Destination Bloodline. I will watch Final Destination Bloodline at cinema. However, I've not liked the trailers. I don't understand why studios show amazing stuff at CinemaCon, but not to the public. Well, that's pretty easy. Anyway, are they trying to screw the cinemas? No. As the only good advertisement has come from your show. Listen, they show stuff at CinemaCon because it is not the movie audience they're showing it to. They're showing it to the movie theater owners to try to excite the movie. Like, because look, you don't want to release a 10-minute scene. It's very, very rare. It happens once in a while, but it's very, very rare that movies will want to give out 10, 15-minute scenes and just drop them online, right? They want to save those for the movie-going experience. But with the movie theater owners, it's a little bit different. Remember, these studios are trying to really encourage the movie theater owners to want to book their film, to book it on the best screens possible, to give them the choicest times and the choicest theaters and all that kind of stuff. They're trying to win them over, but they're not releasing it to the public. You know, it reminds me a lot of the argument, like when you go to CinemaCon or Comic-Con even, and they'll show an exclusive trailer to people at Comic-Con, and people not at Comic-Con get all butthurt and go, why do you show it to them and not show it to me? Well, they weren't going to show it to you anyway. It's not like they took it away from you and gave it to people who went to Comic-Con. It's just that we want to reward people who came out to Comic-Con and give them a special little treat. Well, you should give it to all of us. No, get out of here with that. And so with CinemaCon, that's not even for film fans. That is this. If CinemaCon is not a fan event, it's an industry event, right? So they'll show people at this industry event all this stuff because they want these movie theater owners to really get on board with these movies, and they don't care if they spoil the movie for them, and they don't care if they show them too much because it's just the movie theater owners, right? But that stuff you can't just release to the public. And yeah, I mean, listen, you can make an argument. Could you get people more excited about seeing Thunderbolts if you show them half the movie first? Well, yeah, I guess, but you don't want to be showing the public half the movie. So don't even worry about CinemaCon. That's an industry event for industry insiders and industry people. It's not meant as a fan event. It's not meant to promote the films. It's meant to get the theaters more on board with them and try to give them better positioning. So yeah, don't worry about that at all. All right. Next up, thanks for sharing, James. And by the way, yes, Final Destination does look really good. It does look really good. All right. Next up, we got Brian O'Connor, who writes, it's bizarre that Blade hasn't been filmed yet. Feige doesn't have access to the top talent the way we think he does. Oh, he absolutely does. He absolutely does. He has access to anybody he wants. The money may or may not be right for everybody involved, but Billy, he's got more access to anybody than anybody else in Hollywood does. He just simply does. Anyway, Blade is the easiest film to make. All right. Okay. I'm going to stop you right there. Brian O'Connor, my film loving brother. I love you. I'm going to bust your balls a little bit here. Okay. But it's all in film loving brotherly fun, but I've got to bust your balls here just a little bit. Few things drive me as crazy as when I hear people who don't make movies for a living say how easy it is to do a movie. Like, few things drive me as nuts as when anybody who has no fucking idea how to make an actual movie will say, that's an easy movie to make. No, it's not. No, it's not. Okay? Just get that out of there right now. There is nothing easy about making a Blade movie. If making a Blade movie was easy, Blade 3 wouldn't have been a pile of shit. But it was a pile of shit. If it was easy, they would have had it out the door ages ago. Clearly, they're really particular about it. And listen, it absolutely is inexcusable that after 6 years after announcing the movie, you still don't have it on the go. You still don't even have a director. 100%. I've said that a lot myself. But just stop with it's an easy movie. No, it's not. Okay? It's just not. It's monumentally, Herculeanly hard to make a good movie out of anything. Anyway, Blade is the easiest film to make. All it needs is to be The Raid with vampires, as if that's easy to make. Gareth Evans or Stylist to do it in the sea. Listen, you just brought up Gareth Evans, right? Who did such a great job on The Raid, but he's got a new movie out with Tom Hardy that sucks. Don't talk to me about how easy it is. Look, Gareth Evans, who is a very good director, made some fantastic movies. He's got a new one out with Tom Hardy, and that movie's terrible. It's terrible. So stop with this. Oh, Gareth Evans could do it easy. No one. Not Spielberg, not Villeneuve, not Scorsese. Nobody can do it easy. Because Gareth Evans himself just made a bad one. So don't tell me you could just insert Gareth Evans and it would be fantastic. Anyway. So again, I agree that it's ridiculous that 6 years after announcing it that they haven't got it done. 100%. But stop with this nonsense of, oh, it'd be easy, super, no, not hard at all. Anybody could do it. If that's true, it would have been done. It would have been done. Anyway, so I'll just leave it at that. And again, please don't take any of that personally, Brian. You are my film loving brother. I'm busting your balls, but I got to say that is something that drives me crazy when I hear my fellow film fans say stuff like that. Anyway, all right, next up. Amin writes, one of two. My God, wow. Just finished episode 9 of Andor. I'm in awe. Loved 8, but loved 9 even more. The speech will go down in history. The entire sequence of getting Mon Mothma out of the Senate building felt like something straight out of Mission Impossible. Even the music, could totally see Tom Cruise doing that. In fact, the music in that entire episode was outstanding. It really was. The end felt like Hans Zimmer Inception. Man, this easily could have just been the series finale, and I wouldn't have had a problem. I completely agree. I might have been Ann I was talking to when I said, this completely felt like the series finale. Like, it doesn't end leading into the events of Rogue One, granted, but those 3 episodes really did feel like the finale. And I wouldn't have been surprised at all. Had I not known that there were already, episodes 10, 11, and 12 coming, if that ended, and then we found out, and that's it. That's it for Andor. I would have thought, yeah, what a great way to end. That was fantastic. I would have been totally thrilled with it. But we get 3 more episodes. And I'm with you. As great as episode 8 is, with the massacre on Gore, and it's fabulous, I'm with you. I liked episode 9 even more. Because you had all the thriller aspect, the intrigue aspect of it, the tension. Like, again, episode 8 was fan-freaking-tastic. And so was episode 7, by the way. I don't know why everybody's glossing over episode 7. Episode 7 was wonderful. But episode 8 was mind-blowing. But I think I'm with you, man. I prefer episode 9 even more. All right. Next up, we've got Raymond Verrata, who writes, congrats to Pope Leo. I believe that's the 14th. Anyway, the American Pope from Chicago, who is known by fellow Villanova alum as Bob. That's another role Lewis Pullman can play if there's a biopic on him. Pope Bob. Well, you know what? And I think it's really fascinating that for the first time ever, there's an American Pope. First time it's ever happened. I was kind of thinking the Filipino guy was going to get it. But they went with the American dude, and everything I'm reading about him so far is pretty good. So anyway, here's hoping he does as good of a job as Pope Francis did. Pope Francis was beloved. I hope this guy does a good job. That's all I can say. All right. Next, we got Amin, who writes, I enjoyed the sequel trilogy, except for 9, The Rise of Skywalker. I love 7. So did I. I think episode 8 is overhated and underrated. I didn't mind. There are things about The Rise of Skywalker, not The Rise of Skywalker, sorry, The Last Jedi. There are things about The Last Jedi that I really love. There are things about The Last Jedi that I really hated. Overall, it was okay, I suppose. I do think it's overly criticized, but I don't think it's very good. Anyway, and then episode 9 was a total dumpster fire. Anyway, but I feel like moving forward, amongst Star Wars fans, when someone mentions episodes 7, 8, and 9, a lot of us may now think of Andor and not the movies. That's true. That's true. I think if somebody says Star Wars and then episode 7, 8, and 9, my mind will probably go directly to episode 7, 8, and 9 of Andor season 2. Just like when anybody just says the words episode 3, all I think about is Last of Us season 1, episode 3, as one of the greatest episodes of television of all time. But I think you're right. I think now whenever I hear people say episode 7, 8, 9 in the terms of Star Wars, I'm probably going to think of Andor. Now, I'm not saying I'm right to do so, but that's probably what I'll think. All right. Next up, Jaspreet writes, "Hey guys, read a report that says Sam has assembled his Avengers off screen. If you saw Thunderbolts, it sounds like that's what's happened. I think this would have been a great opportunity for a Disney Plus special. No way. Don't do anything crazy in it. Just a fun way to see him get his teams together." I really disagree for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's completely not important. Like, are you going to spend the money that you need to spend on getting those actors all together? And then are you going to spend the resources and studio time and administration time and all that kind of stuff to put together something that ultimately isn't needed? We don't need to see Sam. All we need to do is see the beginning of the next movie and say, these are Sam's Avengers. He went out and got these guys. And maybe a quick 30-second flashback in them. So, look, don't get me wrong, Jaspreet. If Disney Plus tomorrow dropped a Marvel special presentation called Getting the Team Together, and it shows Sam going around to get his version of the Avengers together, would I watch it? Well, of course I would. But if I'm a Disney exec, is that something I think we need to spend our time, our resources, our money, our manpower, our administrative time, the logistics, all that kind of stuff on that just to drop something like that on Disney Plus? Probably not. I don't personally think it would be worth it. I really don't. Anyway, but again, if they were to announce it, I'd watch it. Of course I would. All right. Thanks for that, Jaspreet. Next up, Ryan tips in a $20 tip. Thank you, Ryan. And Ryan writes, "I used to make music. I've been wanting to make movie or Marvel content. Along with your encouragement, I started an out of theater reaction review YouTube channel. 2 weeks in, 10,000 views. Oh, nice. Good for you. Lots of fun. But one big drawback, I'm a few days behind on the show." Listen, first of all, good on you, Ryan. I have said for years, I think every movie fan should get involved in making a blog, a podcast, a YouTube channel, whatever, for a couple of reasons. One, it lets you contribute to the online discussion about movies. And two, it gets us more involved with the object of our fandom. I know it's a weird comparison, but it's like playing fantasy football. Like if you're a big football fan, when you play fantasy football, it makes you even more engaged on the games that are happening on Sunday. You get even more invested in watching games. And I just think as film fans, even if you write like one blog post a month or do one podcast every couple of weeks or make one YouTube video, whatever, even if only 5 or 10 people watch, read, or listen to it, it still gets you more involved in the object of our fandom, which in this case is movies and stuff like that. And I think it's wonderful. I think more people should get involved, and I'm glad that you're doing it. And it sounds like you're having a good time. So good on you, Ryan. Thanks for sharing that, dude. All right. Next up, we've got Curious Chris, who writes, "Me at the start of Thunderbolts. Who the hell is this Bob guy? Me at the end of Thunderbolts. I would give my life and sacrifice my firstborn to keep Bob safe. I was surprised how much I loved his character. His arc really hit close to home at times." Listen, I especially got more and more into Bob's character. Like, first of all, just when he shows up, he's kind of a fun guy, right? Hey, you're Captain America? You're kind of an asshole. Like he's a fun character, right? But I got really more invested in him as a character the more we learned about him, right? As we find out about his history. Like, I was on meth, like that he saw his life as a waste. And like, the more you find out about him, that's where it really starts to hit home, because all of us have our weaknesses, our pits, our despair. We all have our voids. right? And that's where we really got attached to him. It's a great movie, and that character is definitely one of the reasons why. All right. Next up, we got Mr. Snivy, who writes, "This is going to sound mean. Oh, dear. But am I the only one who noticed that Jonathan kind of looks like Matt Reeves? Also, my name is pronounced Snivy. I think I got it right. You must not watch the show a lot, because that's been the running gag on our show." Ray's smiling right now. That's been the running gag on our show for like 3 years. That is not sort of. There are certain pictures of Jonathan that if you put them side by side with certain pictures of Matt Reeves, you'd be challenged to know which one was which a little bit. Again, it's not all the time, but if you take just the right picture of Jonathan and just the right picture of Matt Reeves, you would have a hard time knowing the difference between the two. So I assure you, Mr. Snivy, you are not the only one. It is a common thing. That's been the running gag around here for a few years. So you're not crazy. All right. Last one of the day comes to us from Curious Chris, who writes, "John Williams and Hans Zimmer are both absolute legends. No doubt. 100% they are. But their backgrounds are polar opposites. Williams was classically trained. Zimmer was self-taught pop musician. Williams writes with a piano, Zimmer on a computer, totally different music styles." Absolutely. You know what? Nothing really emphasizes that as much as recently I went to, like, Ann and I go to the John Williams concert every year. And we went to the recent one, which unfortunately he did not do himself. It was still the music of John Williams, but he had to get David Newman to conduct for him. So he wasn't at that one. But so I went to the John Williams concert, Ann and I. And then just like a month or 2 or 3 months later, we went to the Hans Zimmer concert. And radically different experiences. Like both amazing and moving and emotional and fantastic, but very, very different. I don't know that John Williams can do the music that Hans Zimmer does. And I don't know that Hans Zimmer can do the music that John Williams does. John Williams is the GOAT. But they are radically different stylistically. But both just elevate the movies that they write music for. They're just both so great, so dynamically polar opposite, but so incredible both at the same time. So, yeah. And all right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this little show part of your day. Happy Friday, everybody, by the way. A big special thank you to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here a little bit earlier. And a big special thank you to all you guys for sending in those questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Hey guys, keep your guys' eyes open on the YouTube channel this weekend. I'll of course be doing at least one open mic this weekend. I hope you guys are going to be able to come around and join us for that. So that'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.